Good day, YouTubers. Thanks for joining me. This is video 15 in my series of videos on Ontario Northland models, NHO. And today we're taking a look at Proto 2000 models as became available in the late 1990s. And they continued production into the early 2000s. And in my opinion, these are still very nice models. These were some of the first more widely available, high-detailed, already put together models. I managed to collect most of these back in my late high school, early university days, and taking a look at Unit 1600 here in the classic green paint scheme. We've got the torpedo tube air reservoirs on the roof, which is somewhat prototypical. The accuracy of the air intake locations, all of that looks really good. About the only thing that this locomotive doesn't have that would have made it perfect are the bell located on the high end of the short hood, and some covers over the fans on the back of the car body. But otherwise, still very nicely put together model. The cab doors on the front end open, I should say, on the front here, and flipping it around on the rear here. As we're going through them, I might have one that's open, but they are tricky to open and close, so I won't bother showing that to you. About the only thing that was wrong with these locomotives, as many modelers found out the hard way, is that they were prone to cracked gears. So to get them running like they were new out of the box, you had to open up the bottom of the truck and swap out some of the gears. But due to the fact that they were quite thoughtfully put together, that wasn't too big a deal. So putting one of the units in the chevron scheme here on the tracks, just giving her a little fire up. Still nice and smooth and operates just like she would have 20 years ago. I think this is just as DCC was starting to take root. And from what I can tell, there were 2 production runs of the GP9’s. Mine are, I believe, all out of that first production run. It seems like some out of the second production run were labeled as DCC ready, which these definitely aren't. You have to do the old school wiring project. In regards to road numbers, in the green classic scheme here, I've got units 1600 and 1602. It appears that units 1603 and 1605 were also available in the green scheme, and I don't have those. In the chevron scheme, we've got unit 1605 and unit 1601. They did a really good job with the chevron paint scheme here. The only criticism is that the light blue on the roof is perhaps a little too light, especially when you start comparing it to other modelers. But you've heard me say this before, that that very light blue application is how some of these locomotives tended to look after a few years sitting in the sun. So you do look at some photos of a well-weathered Ontario Northland GP39, and that blue is looking very, very yellow. The other paint scheme and road number offered was the Owen rail scheme, in which they offered unit 1603. Their marketing of the day seemed to suggest that they had 2 road numbers available for each paint scheme. I've only been able to find evidence of them doing unit 1603, but there probably is another road number floating out around there somewhere. If anyone knows better, please feel free to reach out to me. Moving on now, what was also offered by Proto 2000 were these GP38’s. Again, probably still the best GP38’s available. Now, in regards to details in comparison to actual locomotives, these are correct in not having the blisters for the sorry, I'm getting tongue twisted here today. The dynamic brake grid, that's what I was trying to say. And these don't have the extended roof line here, which functioned as a radiator cover, air intake cover, I guess I should say. The only other thing that's not perfect about them is the fact that on the entire Northland versions you would have had a bell in place of the roof-mounted lighting. But otherwise, beautifully painted locomotives, much closer to the railway's actual locomotives and anything that it offered been to date, in my opinion, since. And again, beautiful runners. So again, I only have the one GP38 here, unit number 1800. I do believe that they produced another road number. I meant to look that up before I shot the video, but I neglected to. I think it might be unit 1805, but now that I've said that, I'm sure that I'm wrong. Also, they produced the progressive scheme. So unit 1801 in front of us. Again, runs beautifully, especially considering her age. They seem to pay a reasonable degree of attention to what road numbers that they produced. For example, 1801 was one of the first locomotives painted in the Owen rail paint scheme, so they did well in that regards. 1603 was one of the first GP9’s painted in the new paint scheme. 1600 and 1602. I think it was 1602 that tended to linger in the older green paint scheme for a while, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But just, you know, they were careful about not producing a road number that didn't make any sense. For example, you don't have any of the GP9’s in the road number 1604. That unit was retired for a period of time, I think the mid-70s, due to some engine difficulties. So it could have been produced in the green scheme and been accurate up until an early 70s road date. But it reappeared as a chop nose locomotive in the late 70s, early 80s, I believe. So again, I still think these guys did a remarkable job, and I will move forward in my next video showing you another batch of Proto models, this time Proto 1000, RS3s, and RS10s. Thank you for joining me for another video, and have a good day.